Hey, today I'm going to be building two very quick, very easy Christmas builds. Little tree, little star here. And these two builds are very profitable because all you need for these is one piece of pine shelving. Now this piece is 6 feet long. It's a 1x10. It's actually only 3/4 thick, but it's called a 1x10. And these are less than $8 at your local big box store. And actually with this one piece, you can build 3 of these projects. So you can build one tree, 2 stars, all trees, all stars, whatever you want. So 3 projects, 1 board, very profitable. Before we get started, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give the video a like. It really goes a long way for a small channel like mine. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Now let's get to the build. The first thing I'm going to do is set up my table saw for an 1.5 inch wide cuts. Then I'll fumble my measuring tape but recover it pretty smoothly. And both the star and the tree projects, I'm going to use 1.5 inch wide boards, so I'm going to cut down quite a few of these here as I'm going to batch these out. For the stars, you're going to need 10 10-inch long pieces of this 1.5 inch stock. Once I get everything ripped down, I'm actually going to sand these pieces before I take them to the miter saw. This is just going to save me a lot of time dealing with these 2 longer pieces instead of those 10 small individual pieces. When I'm done with that, I'm going to set my miter saw to 54 degrees for the first cut. All 10 pieces are going to be cut identical, with a 54 degree cut on one end and an 18 degree on the other. So the first thing I'll do is put a 54 degree cut on the very end of one of my strips, and I'll use that point to measure off to get my 10-inch length and the next angle. From the long point of the cut, I'm going to measure in 10 inches and make a mark. Then I'm going to make a little reference line just so I make sure I don't mess up which direction the angle's going in. You're going to end up with kind of a trapezoid looking shape here. This next cut is going to be made at 18 degrees. So set your miter saw there and make a cut on that 10-inch mark you just made. And now you've got one finished piece. And note how the longest point of each cut is on the same side of the board. To cut out the remaining 9 pieces, I set up a stop block so I can repeat the cut easily. I move my saw back to 54 degrees and make my first cut. Then I'll move my saw back to the 18 degree mark, move my piece up to the stop block, flip the board, and make my second cut. And just repeat this for all the other pieces. To assemble these, you just lay one piece on top of the other, followed by another piece underneath, and just repeat that over-under pattern all the way around, making sure that the edges of all your angles line up nice and flush. And assembly is really easy. I'm just going to use some 18 gauge, 1.25 inch long nails and some wood glue to hold everything together. Don't forget to hit that like button, and if you're really enjoying the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Once I make it all the way around, I'll just set that aside for a couple hours until everything's dried up. Once everything's dry, I give it a good look over, clean up any glue squeezer that I might find, and start staining. And for this star here, I'm using a Minwax Special Walnut. I really like the color of this. I use this on a lot of my projects, so I tend to buy this in bulk. I'm sure I'll tire of it someday, but I'm not there yet. Now these stars make excellent wall leaners. They stand up very well on their own, but I like to add a D-ring to the back of them. This just gives you the option to hang it if you'd like. So I just find center of the back of one of the points and make sure that this is going to be far enough down that when it's hanging you don't see the hook pop up behind the point. And that's it. A very quick, very easy build, but I really love the looks of these. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Alright, onto the tree. And believe it or not, this one might actually be easier than the star. And these are going to be the same width stock as the star, 1.5 inches. So I head back to the table saw. I'm not going to lie, this is the same clip as before. I cut all my pieces at once. But they are 1.5 inches, and you just rip them down the table saw like you would with any other rip. And just like before, I'm going to pre-sand everything when they're one large piece. I'll only have to sand the cut off ends when I have everything assembled, so that'll save a lot of time there. All of the cuts on the tree, aside from the trunk, will be at 31.6 degrees. I'll start by taking my first cut off the very end of the board, and I'll use the long point of the angle, to measure from to get my lengths. And the great thing about this project is you can experiment with different lengths of limbs. There's really no right or wrong combination. For myself, I like my smallest limb to be 5 inches, and I work my way up to 6, 7, 8, and 9. That just seems to be a size that I prefer, but go ahead and play around with it. And make sure to rotate your piece in between cuts so that your long points stay on the same side of the board. And since you need 2 identical pieces for each limb, I just use my first cut as a template for my next cut. And for the trunk of the tree, just cut both ends square. I'm going to use about 17 inches here, 16 or 17, I can't remember what it was, but again, this is completely up to you. And once I give those cut ends a quick sand, I'm ready to assemble everything. I'm going to set my square to center of the board, and I'm just going to strategically make light little marks in the spots I know that the limb's going to cover, so I don't have to worry about sanding them off after. This is just going to help me keep everything nice and centered as I work my way down. And just a little bit of wood glue and some 18 gauge nails will hold this all together. As I work my way down, I use a scrap piece of the 3/4 inch thick stock and use it as a spacer in between the limbs. This just keeps everything looking nice and even. Oh, and I should mention that I started with my second smallest piece for the very top. My very smallest piece is actually going to be used on the bottom just to give the tree a little bit of a different look. So from top to bottom it went 6 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches, and now 9 inches. But what I'm putting on here is actually not the 9-inch piece. I haven't noticed it yet, but I just nailed my spacer where my limb was supposed to go. And just as my card ran out of memory, I found my mistake. So while I was transferring some video clips, I gently pulled off that spacer piece and put on the proper pieces, and finished it all off by putting my smallest 5-inch pieces on the bottom. Then I make sure to fill all my nails with some putty and let that dry. For the tree, I'm going to be using a darker stain. This one's actually called Dark Walnut. No, I don't have some kind of weird addiction with walnut stains. It's just something I've had in my shop for a while, and I think it looks nice. This stuff goes on real dark, so I only let it sit for a minute and then wipe it off to get the look I want. And you know what? If I did have some kind of weird walnut addiction, I wouldn't tell you. And in case I want to hang this on the wall next to my beautiful star I just built, I'm going to install a D-hook. I'll leave a link in the description below for these hooks. I don't know how big the box of these were, but it must have been massive because it's been like 2 years and I still have some left. They come in really handy. And all that's left to do is to hang it up next to that beautiful star you made. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications so you see what's coming up next. Till next time.